Congrats on booking your first wedding. Now that you have done that, I want to give you some basic tips to make sure everything goes well and your clients are happy. Before getting into it, and for the sake of the video, I'm assuming that you already have good experience with exposure, with using your camera. You know the exposure triangle, you know how to get all of your settings right and everything like that. And I'm also assuming that you are not second shooting, but shooting a wedding by yourself. If you are second shooting, you already have a mentor, you already have someone who will direct you on what to do and how to do it. So I would say listen to them and do what the main shooter wants you to do. The first thing I would say is go over the schedule and the locations for the wedding. Make sure you know when everything is happening, when you need to switch locations and stuff like that. And if you can, go scout the locations. This will give you a lot of peace of mind because you will know what the good spots are, what the bad spots are. And if you can, go to the locations at more or less the same time that you will be there during the wedding. That way, assuming that the weather is the same on both days, you will get an idea of how the light is, where you can shoot, where you can't shoot, where you can find some shade spots if the sun is too harsh and things like that, which is probably one of the most important things when it comes to wedding photography. As long as you have good light or good shade to hide from bad light, you will be fine. And when you are going over the schedule, more often than not, the portrait session will be sometime in the middle of the day. And if you can talk to the clients and try to squeeze in a shorter portrait session at sunset, if you have the chance to shoot outside, this will elevate your work a ton. Even getting like 10 to 15 minutes during sunset to take some nice photos with the best light you'll have during the day will probably give you the best photos you'll take during the whole wedding. The second tip is when talking to the client, ask for what's important for them during the wedding, what are some things that you have to cover. Maybe they have some things happening that are not traditional in other weddings. Maybe some of the guests have speeches planned or some surprises which are not usually in weddings, so definitely ask for anything out of the norm, ask for anything important. Maybe they really want to get a lot of pictures of their grandparents or of some other guests they don't see often. And the second thing to ask for is the style and the vibe of what they want their pictures to look like, because if it's your first wedding, you don't already have a strong portfolio, which means you don't have a specific look. Maybe you have a look that you want to go for. If you do, show them some reference photos, show them what you would like to create and see if your vision aligns with the couple's vision, and then if it does, then you have the perfect opportunity to create exactly what you want to create. Also, definitely try to get some reference photos, inspiration photos that you can pass along to the clients. You can find some maybe poses or specific shot ideas that you want to recreate, which makes it a lot easier when you're shooting because you already have 5 to 10 images that you know you want to recreate. The couple knows what they need to do for the images, which will just make it that much easier to get them. Tip number 3, this is probably one of the most important things and something that couples never think about, is ask them to make lists of family portraits and group photos. This will make it so much easier to shoot group shots, because without it you often get different family members trying to get 100 different variations of I want these people in a picture, those people in a picture, and that's not necessarily what the couple wants. So try to get the couple to make a list to make sure they have all the groups they want, and then if anyone wants additional group photos, tell them you will do that during cocktail hour, during the reception, or some other time during the day. Another great thing to do is to ask a bridesmaid, groomsman, or someone who knows everyone at the wedding to help you with the group shots, with just arranging people, making groups of people, because you don't know everybody's name, you don't know everyone who needs to be in the photo, so having someone who can put a face to all of those names will definitely make it much easier. Definitely try to get someone who is really outgoing, who is not shy, and who's not scared to be loud. Tip number 4 would be overshoot. This doesn't mean take 50 shots of the exact same frame. This means get a variety of shots throughout the day, and maybe, yeah, for those group shots and stuff like that, take 5-10 images for each group shot, so you can make sure everyone's eyes are open, everyone's looking at the camera and no one's making a stupid face. But generally, when doing portraits and stuff, try to get some candid photos, posed photos, get wides, medium, tights of everything. Make sure you get all of the details. Maybe you wouldn't think to shoot the food or something, and maybe the couple thinks the food is really important, so just shoot anything. If you're doubting if you need to shoot something or not, just shoot it. Take the shot, it doesn't cost you anything, and later on it might turn out to be important. So I would say definitely overshoot. With time you will be able to know how many photos you need, what you need to shoot, what you don't, but it's your first wedding. Honestly, capture everything. Some good ideas when going to shoot portraits is while you're walking to the portrait location or around different spots at the location, just get shots of your couple interacting, walking around, and get photos where they're not posed, where they're not thinking about you and about the pictures being taken, but when they're just interacting and having fun during the day. Another tip when shooting portraits is get the safe shots first, get them out of the way as soon as possible. I know maybe you'll have some ideas for some like grand pictures that you want to take, some specific movements, poses and stuff like that, but make sure you also get those classic boring portrait shots of just the couple looking into the camera smiling, those very cliche and basic wedding photos, because at the end of the day those are the most important, those are the pictures most people will want to have prints of. So make sure you do those, you have some safety, and then you can move on to some other more complicated shots later on. Tip number 5 is have backups of everything. So if you only have one camera, borrow another camera from someone, or rent it, or do anything in your power to have a backup on the day. It doesn't have to be the same camera, it doesn't have to be the same level of camera, but as long as you have something, if your main camera dies, you have something else to cover the day and to make sure you still get good results and that you don't have to rely on shooting on your phone or something like that. If your camera has dual card slots, definitely use 2 cards, and generally for the long term I wouldn't trust a single card slot camera for shooting weddings, because SD cards go bad, they get corrupted, you lose photos, which is definitely not something you want happening, especially at your first wedding. So if you can have dual cards in your camera, if your camera has only 1 card slot and you don't have the money to rent something, or you're not able to replace the camera with something else, at least make sure that you have a good reliable card. Don't use a card that's 5 years old, don't use the cheapest card you bought off of Amazon. Use something that's reliable, like SanDisk cards, pro-grade cards, and definitely don't get the cheapest versions of those cards. Also some tips to make sure your cards don't corrupt. Don't delete any pictures off of the cards during the shoot, and don't take the cards out of the camera until they are full or you're swapping them with another card, but ideally you won't take the card out of the camera for the whole wedding. So maybe make sure you have a bigger card that can accommodate a lot of photos without running out of space. And as soon as you get home from the wedding, back everything up into 2 different places. I usually put everything onto an external hard drive as well as an external SSD, off of which I then edit the whole wedding. That way you have everything in 2 different places, and you can make sure that even if one storage unit corrupts, you still have everything backed up on a different one, which gives you so much peace of mind. And once everything's backed up, you can go ahead and format your cards for the next shoot without being stressed. If you have multiple cards, then leave everything on the cards until you're done editing and until you deliver the actual wedding, because this will give you a third backup on the actual SD cards and will make it even that much safer. And basically that's it. Those are the main 6 first wedding tips that I wanted to give. Some other tips that you can follow but don't have to is maybe for a first wedding, I would advise using a zoom lens instead of a prime. Maybe keep the prime just for a couple portrait shots and stuff like that, but use a zoom for the actual ceremony and for those crucial moments where you need maybe more reach, or when you need versatility, going wide and going tight without having to faff around and switch lenses. Or if you have 2 bodies, then you can have a wide lens on one and a tighter lens on the other. But I don't know, I generally like having a zoom lens on my camera for the ceremonies. And before the ceremony, I would talk to the officiant or the priest or whoever will be conducting the ceremony to make sure if they're okay with me walking around them, if there are some zones that they don't want you to be in. Usually churches can be a bit more strict if you can go behind the priest or not. So a good thing is to ask just to make sure that you don't go somewhere where they don't want you. And when delivering photos, I would advise delivering through a photo delivery service, which give you the option to deliver everything in a really nice gallery, and that will elevate your work by showing it in a nice gallery compared to a WeTransfer or Google Drive link, which will then make you seem more professional, make the couple probably happier to share that gallery with their guests, and generally just make you look better in their eyes, which will probably result in more referrals and more weddings in the future. So yeah, this is basically everything I wanted to share today, and if you have any questions about gear, about how to shoot, about anything regarding weddings, leave them below. I will be answering every single comments, and if you want to see a full wedding day behind the scenes, watch this video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.